Ivan, are you ready to tell some secrets?
Hi, I'm Ivan.
I'm Nick.
And this is the DIY Detail Podcast. Today we're going to be going to some things that some of you may not know about detailing. And we want to make it easier for you. And this is a list of things that is going to make your lives maybe a little easier.
Yeah, we come up with about 10, maybe a few extra nuggets along the way, but some little known secrets, things that we figured a lot of people probably don't know. We're going to talk about our products. We're going to talk about not products. We're going to talk about techniques. The first thing that kind of inspired this, Ivan, was just that people I saw on the DIY Detail page recently, they were asking about interior glass cleaning, and a lot of recommendations from professional detailers came in saying use a panel prep, right? Some guy just couldn't get the streaks off of his interior windshield. A lot of folks don't know that you can actually use panel prep as a glass cleaner.
Right. Now, panel prep, you don't want to be spraying it willy-nilly on the interior. One of the main components in our panel prep is propanol, which is a derivative of isopropyl alcohol that does a great job of cleaning windows, and especially breaking through some of the stuff that a regular glass cleaner like Crystal Clear or even Rinseless Wash can't break through because they're not a solvent. And the solvent aspect of panel prep makes it so that, yes, it does break through that, and mostly off-gassing from new cars.
Well, what would you recommend if someone has Crystal Clear and panel prep? When would they use panel prep? I would just say save it unless you absolutely need it. It does a really nice job if you're like, I just can't get those final streaks gone, no matter what glass cleaner you're using.
Exactly.
It can happen, right? So I just say save panel prep for when nothing else works.
Yeah, it's the emergency measures.
Absolutely. All right.
Yeah.
Another one that we came up with was you don't need special products for matte paint or boats or motorcycles. And despite what so many detailers and YouTube channels and brands are going to tell you, you simply don't need special products to clean these.
No, matte paint is actually standard clear-coated paint with one little agent added to it that creates that matte look on the surface. If you lightly polish a matte paint, it becomes gloss just like any other paint. So it's not a deep difference in the paint. It is just one little added ingredient that makes it matte, or as BMW calls frozen. And frozen is maybe a better way of putting it. It's frozen in time. It's frozen in that state, and it hasn't been allowed to gloss up. So that's basically what matte paint is. It is the same basic clear coat as is on a shiny car, as it is on a glossy car. It just has that little extra matting agent. So any cleaning that we do, any of our cleaning products will work beautifully. We actually did a vehicle recently where we polished a matte paint. Now, back up. Don't get the gold standard polish out, but we did use the app on matte paint to clean it up and to get that deep clean before coating. So even something like that can be used, but matte paint does not require special products. So get that out of your lexicon. If you use them, great, they work,
There are special products out there from big name brands that are designed in their labels for matte paint. So that could be very confusing for folks, right? They trust a certain brand. Now we're saying that brand is like lying. How do they make sense of all this? Because we're not saying that, but people might perceive it like we're shots fired. And so they may trust us and trust them, and now they don't know who to trust, and they get confused, Ivan. So we don't want everyone to just shut down and not believe anything anyone says because they perceive something to be a little off.
So basically what's happening is people are saying, okay, I have a matte car. I want something specifically for matte. And the companies have obliged. They've said, you want something specifically for matte? We'll formulate something for matte. Now, those matte cleaning products on a glossy car are still going to work, and vice versa. So it's just a non-essential thing. You can use them. They work fine. But you don't need to have a matte specific product for matte paint. It's just not a necessity. Same thing with fiberglass and motorcycles. The clear coat on a motorcycle is the same as the clear coat on a car. Some motorcycles are a really soft clear coat, but nonetheless, the surfaces are the same. Chrome is chrome, polished aluminum is polished aluminum, plastic is plastic, paint is paint. So you're not going to change that. And on gel coat, again, you don't need anything special. Gel coat is not more fragile than paint. Paint is actually more fragile than gel coat. So you can actually use more, say, aggressive chemicals on gel coat without damaging it than you can on paint. So that is just some of the things in the industry. And there are some companies, a very well-known motorcycle company, we'll put it that way. They have a line of products that is 3 to 4 times the cost of any good detailing product. And it's just rebottled good detailing products. It's not anything special. You're just you're paying extra for the logo. You're paying extra for the name on the bottle. You don't need a specific thing for your motorcycle.
I've been there before. You're looking for a specific product for floor mats or vinyl or whatever. You see that word on the bottle. You're like, I spent a lot on my bike or my car or whatever. I want to trust the process. Like, I'm just going to get that thing because I don't know enough about this industry to discern what's what. And so hopefully folks find value in what we're doing here, trying to educate. And if you find value, please subscribe to the channel. We work really hard to give you guys education. And those two were, I think, product agnostic recommendations, right? A panel prep from any brand could work. You know, so we haven't mentioned our products yet. Here's an interesting one. And I brought it up to you, Ivan, is you probably don't need a cutting compound.
No. In this day and age, there's really no need for a cutting compound. Unless you're working in a body shop and you're only wet sanding to 2000 grit, then yeah, maybe it might be a good thing. But on today's modern paints, first of all, we don't want to get that aggressive. Being aggressive on modern paint is never a good thing. The paint is getting thinner and thinner every year. It's getting softer. It's just part of the process. And getting a very aggressive cutting compound is just not needed with the technology that we've put forth and other companies have put forth. But, you know, one thing that we've brought to the table that's very different is a 25 millimeter stroke DA. So that is going to increase the cut dramatically. And then our wool pad that is designed specifically to work with the DA. And I know we've said it many times and people are a little confused when we say this, that cut with a DA, finish with a rotary. It's a little backwards from what you've been told from other people, other companies, trainers, whatever, but it works. And once you try it, you'll realize that, oh, wow, it actually does work. And you don't need to go to that heavy, aggressive cut with the rotary. And that is one thing that, you know, technology is changing on a daily basis. You wouldn't drive a car anymore with a manual choke. For those of you that have even experienced a manual choke, Nick, you probably never experienced that, right?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So basically it was back in the days of the carburetor that to start the engine when it was cold, you needed to remove a bit of air and add a little more fuel to it. So, you know, back in the teens and the 20s, 19 teens and 20s. Okay. Yeah, not this generation because we're in the teens and 20s now. But anyways,
I wonder what we're going to call these, the teens?
Yeah, I have no idea. Yeah. 2K teens. But anyways, the 1910s and 20s, you could actually adjust the fuel air ratio as you were driving and you could adjust the spark, and drivers needed to be a little more attentive and know more than just getting in the car, pressing the start button and driving off. But today we wouldn't do that anymore. And it's the same thing with detailing products. Paint has changed. It's changed dramatically. And the technology to preserve our paint, the technology to work with our paint to enhance it has changed dramatically as well. And, you know, as detailers, we need to get out of the 60s, 70s, and 80s, and let's get into the 2020s.
Cut for show, finished for dough. It's like that saying where you drive for show in golf, but you cut for dough, right? The money is made in the finishing step. You can trust our gold standard polish to give you that flawless finish at the end. And that ego, which damages potentially finite clear coat, is what you're playing with on the front end for show. You can really get a lot of cut with gold standard polish depending on the pad. If you use a wool pad and you use a dual action polish like ours, the 25 millimeter, or if you like cutting with a rotary, and let's say you're just, I like to cut hard with a wool pad on a rotary, you can even use gold standard polish. You can get a lot of cut with our polish, but it really totally shines in its versatility and then in finishing. So you can just trust it to finish. And Ivan, you preach it all the time. Preservation over perfection when it comes to clear coat.
100%. You know, it's not like back in the 70s and 80s when we had an infinite almost thickness of paint on vehicles. We're not there anyway. There's some vehicles that the paint is so thin that one, pass of polish is all that you can really do to it before you start doing damage. And modern paints also have things like tri-coats and tinted clear coats.
Explain that. Yeah, that came up in a Facebook post recently. A guy wanted to take his paint all the way to perfection, and a lot of detailers chimed in. So if you're not a member of the DIY Detail Facebook group, by the way, conversations like this are happening daily where we're all learning from each other. So please link is in the description of this video. Please do ask to join, and as long as you answer a couple questions like what's the purpose of this group and you're not going to spam or harass people, you're in. So anyway, Ivan, talk about the tri-color clear coats.
Right. So the tinted clear coats, I used to have one. I had a Mustang that was Ford Ruby Red, which is a beautiful red color. And the clear coat on it is actually tinted red. Underneath it is a pinkish gold color, and you have the red on top. In the 70s, we used to call it a candied color, and that's basically what it is. But the more you polish, the lighter the red is going to get, and eventually you'll get a pinkish gold color. And in my shops, we used to do a lot of repairs. There was a Ford dealer across the street. When the ruby red color first came out, they polished a scratch away in a car, and lo and behold, it was pink underneath. And they were wondering, how did we make this pink? How did we get it to be pink? And how did we get it not to be pink? We had to repaint that panel because they polished through. So on the tinted clear coats, it's very, very, you don't want to be polishing often. And instead of polishing your car more often, learn how to wash safely. And safe washing is going to prevent you from having to polish more and do more polishing and polish yearly. Some people ask us, how often can I polish my car? Ideally once. You don't want to make it a routine to polish your car on a regular basis.
How do you know you have that tinted clear coat? Or as a detailer, how do you know you're dealing with tinted clear coat?
One way is as soon as you start polishing, your pad changes color. Not as aggressively as on a single stage paint, but it will change color. The other thing is, we have this thing called Google. You can find anything out. So basically you type in, let's say Ford Mustang RR paint code, and you'll get a whole plethora of information.
Yeah, but that's more. They're here for the information, Ivan. We don't need them searching Google. And you know what? I've had a couple of people that knew nothing about paint, but were actually into cars and automotive, didn't know about this, and so I thought, why don't we just ask this question? Tell me what single stage paint is. Tell me what modern day clear coat is. Like, even if you didn't have images, like how would you explain it to someone who you just met and they were kind of curious about this and were like, wait, really?
Yeah. So single stage paint, there's two types of single stage paint. One is the old school lacquer, which was a lacquer that had pigment in it, and the whole thickness of the paint is colored. So as soon as you start rubbing on it, that color is transferring to your microfiber towel or transferring to your polishing pad. That's single stage paint. The more modern...
What era was lacquer paint? Like years?
Up until the 70s.
Okay.
And then we came with urethane paint, which much more durable than lacquer paint. But again, all one color. So there's not a differentiation, or there's not a clear coat on top. So when you spray it, that's it, you're done. So the old $99 Mako paint jobs, those were single stage, guaranteed. Now,
so metal,
primer, and then color. Okay. That's it.
I'm going way rudimentary.
Yeah.
Primer is
to help bond between the metal and the paint.
That's not actually paint.
No, well, it is a form of paint, but it is designed as a sort of an adhesive or a glue. So a lot of them is called DTM, so direct to metal primer. And direct to metal primer means that it can go on raw metal, adhere to that, but it also provides a porous surface for the paint to adhere to. So it's
okay, go ahead. Sorry.
It's as thin as a paint. It's very thin. It's not a thick layer. On your car, it's very thin. So if you polish enough to get past the clear coat, past the paint, and into the primer, you'll go from primer to metal really, really quick because it's very thin.
You may not even know that you've hit the primer or...
Yeah, well, the primer will be normally white or gray on most factory colors.
Okay, so it does have a color. It's not clear. And then you put...
No, it's not clear. Yeah.
Got it. So it was primer... and then lacquer or urethane based.
Yeah. And then that used to be it. And then in the 80s.
Okay, in the 80s.
We got clear coat. And basically what clear coat is they put you have your metal, you have your primer, you have your color coat that actually turns out to be matte or frozen or, not glossy. And then you put a clear coat onto it. So think of it as a layer of clear plastic that we're putting over it. And that's it. It's very simple. Now, that layer of clear plastic does a lot of things for us. It prevents fading, first of all. It's easier to clean. It's easier to maintain. Your paint's not going to degrade as quickly because it has a lot of UV protection in it. But then as detailers, we tend to strip away some of that UV protection by polishing it too much. So clear coat is a finite resource, especially factory clear coat. You don't want to make it super thin. You don't want to remove all of it, because every time you're polishing a vehicle, you're damaging the vehicle.
And on those rare occasions where you get the tinted clear, can you remind me what we're working with there? And I think of as like a lot of red.
So tinted clear is adding another layer, or tri-coat paint is the same thing. And a tri-coat paint, if we go back to the early 2000s, the white Cadillacs that had sort of pearlescent look to them, well, they were sprayed with white paint, then they were sprayed with clear coat, and then, back up. They were sprayed with white paint, then they were sprayed with a clear coat that had pearls in it. So little shiny objects, little shiny pieces of plastic that gave it that pearlescent look, and then a clear coat over top. Then we went back in time with the candied colored, or the tinted clears, which meant they put down a base layer. And in the on the hot rod era of the 50s, 60s, and 70s, this was called candy. And what they would do is they would put down a layer of heavy metal flake, so a very shiny, look like shiny metal on the paint. And then they'd put a clear coat on top of it that had color in it, and that was the tinted clear. So the tinted clear, the more layers you put on, the deeper it got, and the deeper the color got. So like the case of the RR Ford paint code, which is probably the most popular one on the road, that paint code has a pinkish gold base to it, and it looks like a metallic gold, like a very heavy metallic gold that's sort of pinkish color. And then they put on a clear coat that has red dye in it. And it's that red dye that gives you that depth. So Ford had another color back in the early, about 2010, that was lava red metallic. You looked at the car, it looked black. Anybody that looked at the car, they would swear it was black until the sun hit it. Then all of a sudden it became red. And that's because they had little red flakes in the clear coat.
So I guess the method that we teach, which is, as we talked about, preservation over perfection, a one-step polish, go for shiny paint and don't worry about getting all the scratches out, is the safest way to approach this. If you're like, now I'm freaking out because I don't know what paint I'm going to be polishing.
Yeah, and if you don't know what paint you have, like I said, do a bit of research. But if you don't want to do the research, just do a light enhancement polish. Enjoy the gloss, enjoy the shine, live with the life scars that are on the vehicle.
We have a few more polishing ones. One that I came up with, I'm not sure if this is revolutionary to anybody, but it sure was to me. You can and probably should do your finish polish with a rotary.
Yeah, and this is something, again, that, a little against the established norm. When I started detailing, DAs didn't exist.
Dual action polishers?
So we couldn't finish with a dual action polisher. We finished with a rotary, and we didn't have the pads and the compounds that we have today, but we still managed to have nice, shiny, glossy cars without any swirls on them. And a lot of people are afraid of using the rotary because of the swirls and because of the hologramming is another way of looking at it. It looks like a 3D scratch pattern in the paint when you hit it the right way with light. We've designed a system that works against the norm. And by saying that, we have a red rotary jeweling pad. It's one of the thickest pads on the market. It's 1.25 inches thick, which is about 1/2 inch thicker than most. The other thing, it's a waffle surface, so it's going to conform. It's not creating hot spots. It's not creating pressure points. And then we have the gold standard polish, which just finishes down beautifully. Combine that with a rotary at slow speed, and you'll get the best gloss you've ever seen on a car. And you're not going to get swirls. You're not going to get holograms. You're not going to get any of that. And someone who's never polished before will still be able to do it and finish it down beautifully. We have a video. It's actually our most popular video on our channel, and it was Emily the Audi Nerd. This was the first time she ever picked up a polisher, and it was on a black car. So if something's going to show swirls, it's on a black vehicle. She finished beautifully with the rotary, with just a bit of practice and knowing that, she had no preconceived notions of what polishing was. So she didn't see the guys on Instagram, leaned into the paint with the polisher and putting a lot of pressure on it. She had no preconceived notion, so she just followed the instructions and got a great result. And that's what we're trying to show here is follow the instructions, whether it be from us, whether it be from another manufacturer. But when a manufacturer puts out a system, follow that system and use that system, exploit it. Get the most you can out of that system before experimenting with another one. Or if you like the system, stay with it. But polishing is a very individual thing. There's no right way and there's no wrong way of detailing. There's a lot of really good ways. There might be a few bad ways, but there's a lot of really good ways to detail your car. And it's just find one that works for you, that you like, and that fits your needs. And polishing with the rotary is one of them that a lot of people are naysayers because they've never tried it. And then when they do finally try it, it's like, oh, what have I been missing?
Absolutely. And to continue on that, I think, we're talking about dual action polisher, rotary polisher. Okay, how many polishers do you really need? You certainly don't need 25 to polish your car, Ivan. If you're going to just pick out one polisher, one thing I always tell people is just get the dual action, because you can do your cutting, you can do your finishing. It's beautiful for one steps with our yellow, gold standard waffle pad.
Yeah.
If you can, get a dual action for cutting and a rotary for finishing, because it's just such a nice combo. You'll love the finish you get with the rotary. And depending on the vehicle, and again, this is complicated things, I actually like to one step with the rotary a lot of times. Just put the jeweling pad on there and just gloss up that paint. So it's your finish polish, right? But it could also be just your one step, and one step just means one pad, one polisher, one liquid.
Yeah.
You're just doing that one step, right?
Exactly.
And if you didn't know what that was, the other one step we typically teach is our dual action with the yellow waffle and the gold standard polish. That does a nice job of cutting and finishing as well. But the whole idea, Ivan, and the genesis of this one was, you're not a fan of the tiny polishers. How many polishers does one really need?
One. That's all you really need. Now, is it nice to have more? Sure. Is it fun to have more? Of course.
It is fun to have more.
Yeah, but you only really need one. And, Nick and I, we've polished cars together side by side. And a lot of times Nick is like, oh, I wish I had a 3-inch polisher here. And he's doing one side of the car, I'm doing the other. And I've already polished that section. I show him, Nick, I did it with a 6-inch pad on the rotary or the DA. It's fine. You don't need that polisher. One thing that differentiates our system and sort of reduces the need for those specialty little 1-inch and 3-inch polishers is we polish the trim. And a lot of people, the A-pillar on a car, they see the A-pillar and it's 2 inches wide. They think they need a 2-inch polisher. It doesn't matter if your polisher overlaps and goes further, onto the windshield or onto the side window. It really doesn't matter. When we polish a car, we polish everything. And we're not trying to exclude certain areas because the polish might damage them. With the gold standard polish, you're not going to damage trim. You're not going to make it white. So you don't need to tape up trim, first of all, and you don't need to worry about the polisher going on it because we actually want to polish it. We want to exfoliate it or remove the oxidation from the plastic, and polishing does that. So yes, there are areas on very specific vehicles that you might need a little polisher, but my way of looking at it as well, and this has, worked throughout my career, is if you can't get in there with a polisher, there's a good chance they can't get in there to scratch it too deeply either. So just a little, little polish on a microfiber and you'll be good. A good example of that is door cups. Door cups don't require specialty tools, just a bit of polish on a microfiber and you'll clean that door cup up beautifully.
On a microfiber towel and just gently agitate.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think there's the extension shafts with little cone polishers. There's the 1-inch pads, there's the 3-inch pads and the small polishers. They're fun to use if you're doing high level sports cars and, hundreds of thousands of dollar vehicles and you really want to get every little thing as perfect as you can. Okay, what is perfection? What's your time worth? They're nice to have, but as you said, Ivan, you don't think they're necessary at all. I've never seen you use them. Every once in a while, like I said, I think it'd be fun to have, but they're not necessary.
Just move your head to one side there. The car that's behind Nick. Oh, other side. There we go. So Ferrari, right? Everybody on Instagram or YouTube that's polishing a Ferrari, you see them get out a 2-inch polisher and a 3-inch and the little one on the wand, like you're saying, all of that. Jason Kilmer and I polished that car with 6-inch and a rotary.
Yep, and the jeweling pad.
Yeah, and we got everywhere.
And I'm showing the B-roll of that right now, and it scared me when I saw it, but
yeah,
You were confident with it, right? We're on speed one, no pressure,
Yeah.
no heat.
No.
You know, and you can just gently tilt the backing plate and the pad to get into areas. It's great.
Yeah, exactly.
So you certainly don't need 25 polishers to get the job done.
No.
One thing that came up in a recent video we did, Ivan, in the spirit of you can polish, and we encourage you to polish trim with the gold standard polish, is you can actually polish your old, faded, nasty wiper arms.
Yes, you can. And so we did a recent video with a Kia that Nick did one half the old school way. I did one half the DIY way. And we had 4 influencers come in and look at it. We had Pan, we had Fab, we had Keeve, and we had Rad Garage come in. And they're the ones that judged our jobs. And I polished the wiper arm. To me, it's just a normal part of doing a car. And a couple of them were like, "You can polish wiper arms? Show me how to do that." They had no idea it could be done. Yes, you can polish wiper arms. They're paint. It's not a special trick. It's not a Jedi
Are they
thing.
paint or plastic, or what are they made out of?
It's
Metal?
powder coated. Yeah, it's
Okay.
powder. They're metal and they're powder coated black. And you're not going to make them. Well, if you want, you can make them really glossy.
Yeah,
but from
yeah.
the factory, they're sort of a semi-gloss sort of look. And just a quick pass with the polish, you remove the oxidation. They look new again. Everyone's happy. So yes, you can polish your wiper arms. Don't spend a day on them because that paint is extremely thin. If you have a paint thickness gauge, measure it. It's somewhere around 20 to 30 microns thick. So it's not a very thick paint.
And then same goes for plastic all over the vehicle on the exterior.
Yeah, well, the white Jeep we did recently, we polished all that trim because it just needed it. It was bad. So
I've got my list here on the other side that I'm referring
Yeah.
to. If you think I'm not paying attention, boy, I've got one thing that I want to almost go from the end stages to the beginning stages. So we've been kind of
Yeah.
talking about more advanced stuff with polishing, and we're gonna get to more rudimentary basics as we go on. We only have a few more, but this one is kind of a big one. You don't have to polish after you clay.
yes, you do.
Oh,
Yep.
you do? Okay.
You have to polish
Talk to
after
me.
you clay. If you're using a clay bars contain abrasive. So if you are using a clay bar, there's a good chance you're marring your paint. Now, if you're happy with the paint after, you don't have to polish. But if you look on a microscopic level, that clay bar has caused marring. Now, with our perforated synthetic decontamination towel and good lubrication, you're not going to mar the paint. And that is where, again, technology has advanced. We're not using carburetors anymore. We don't have bias ply tires anymore. We're running on radials and we have multi-port fuel injection or direct injection and all that fun stuff. Technology has advanced to make our lives easier as detailers. And one of those technological steps is the perforated synthetic decontamination towel. It is not clay. There's no abrasive on it. And the only way it can be abrasive is if you don't maintain the towel. And maintaining the towel is super easy. Just dunk it in your wash bucket every once in a while. Do a panel, flip it. If the panel is really contaminated, you might flip it halfway through that panel. But rinse it out. It's not going to hold on to the contamination. When you rinse it out, it lets go of the contamination and comes back and it's clean again. It's a wonderful advance in technology that's making detailing easier for everyone.
I can't remember if this was TikTok or Facebook or YouTube where I saw the comments, but TikTok's usually where the vicious ones come. But it was like
Yes.
constantly responding to every comment and saying, "This is how you scratch paint with this decontamination towel." It's not that the decon towel mars paint, according to this commenter. It's that what you're bringing up, what you're taking off as you are decontaminating, where does it go? Does it go in the towel? Does it go back on the paint? How is it possible that we're not going to scratch up or mar the paint by using this towel? And this person would respond to anyone who said, "I've used it. Ivan's right," and say, "No, you're wrong. The stuff coming off the paint will surely scratch it. This is a quack. This is all fake." How do you
Yeah.
respond to that, Ivan?
Well, first of all, you look at the paint, you feel it with your fingers, it's not contaminated. You can't see the contamination, you can't feel the contamination unless you're using like a sheet of plastic between your fingers and the paint. So
Just
they're not
to know if it's contaminated or not. Just at the
Yeah.
start, right? Okay.
right. So they're not these huge boulders sitting on the paint. And there are other things that are going to scratch paint a lot more that people do on a regular basis than our decontamination towel. And one of them is, getting out that beautiful little brush to go around the emblems and stuff. I've seen thousands of people do it. They foam the car And the first thing they do is they get out the brush and they start going around the emblems and around the cracks and the window liners and all that fun stuff. They haven't rinsed away the grit. So what is that brush doing? It's moving around that grit that you can see and feel. The decontamination towel, you've already washed the surface at this point. You're not putting it on a dirty surface. That contamination is so small, and the synthetic surface on the towel is so soft that those particles go into it instead of sitting on the surface of it. Plus, the perforations give them someplace to go, and we're using really good lubrication. And that lubrication usually starts as a foundation of rinseless wash or incredible suds. And then we add to that foundation iron remover, ceramic gloss, or quick beads. Your choice, one of the three, combined with the incredible suds or the rinseless wash, is going to give you great lubricity. It's going to make it easier and safer to clay, or to decontaminate in this case, because no clay is used, and you're not going to mar the surface. And we've done it. We've shown it. Thousands of our, I don't know how many thousands of these towels we've sold. We're close to 100,000 probably by this point.
Many thousands.
Yeah. We run out of stock on a regular basis for a reason. Hopefully we're over that. Now the stocking issues are behind us, but nonetheless, we sell a lot of those towels and people are happy with them. If you ask in our Facebook group, what do you guys think of the perforated synthetic decontamination towel? You get a lot more thumbs up than you'll get thumbs down.
Totally.
Yeah.
And even if you don't want to use it on every wash,
No.
they're just so good to have around. They're so good to have around.
And you don't need to use it every wash.
No. Or on every vehicle. Some people are going to say, I want to have the clay bar still. Keep the clay bar. You have a nasty overspray job, or there's just some day where you're going to be polishing this paint and it is just totally hammered and full of crud, and fine, have a clay bar around. But the decon towel, on times where you're going to want a decon, is going to save you so much time. And we've seen the comments from people over and over again online. So trust us, and if you don't want to, Ivan gave a great explanation there. Okay, there's a few more, 3 more.
Yeah.
Foam is good. I kind of came with this one. Foam is good. Foam your car. Foam cannons aren't just sexy and fun to look at on the internet. Foam is great.
Yeah.
But don't just foam. Foam, then rinse, then you're probably okay. But ideally, one more foam, and then do your contact wash. So we teach the foam, rinse, foam method, Ivan.
Yeah, or chemical rinse, chemical.
Chemical. And again, this goes back to the theme of a lot of people don't know this. They see the foam.
No.
They don't think much about it. They have another job, another career. Their passion isn't auto detailing like us. Every single day we think about it, talk about it, teach it. So foam, rinse, foam, contact wash.
Right. So the traditional way that we see a lot of people do it, they'll get out their foam cannon, they set it all up, they foam the car, then they go to their 2 buckets and they start washing. They haven't removed any grit from the surface. What is that wash media doing? It's moving that grit around. The foam has emulsified it. It's taken it off the surface a little bit, but it's still there. And that's why we do the foam, rinse, foam. So we foam it on, let it dwell. You don't need to let it dwell for an eternity. You don't want it drying on the surface. So foam it on, let it sit a minute or 2 till it starts breaking up and running down by itself. Then rinse it off. And what we've done at this point is rinsed the grit off as well as the foam, broken down some of that traffic film, making it easier to remove in the next step. Now, some people say, well, why don't I just use my pressure washer and go over the car to get rid of the grit? Well, you haven't emulsified, you haven't encapsulated that grit, and now you're taking 1,000 psi and pushing that sand or that grit along the paint until the water can get underneath it to lift it away. By foaming it on, it takes just a minute. It's not a long process. You're not using a lot of foam. With incredible suds, you're using about half an ounce of incredible suds. That's all you're using when you're doing that first foaming. It's very simple, it's effective, and you're basically pre-cleaning the car. And that's another thing that a lot of people are getting into now. There's a lot of companies selling these things, pre-foams or, traffic film removers or things like that. Your contact wash is still your best wash. A touchless wash is a nice ideal. It's great in the fleet washing world. So truck companies and stuff, that's what they use. They foam on an acid, they foam on a basic, they rinse it off, they walk away. It's good enough for them. On your prized possession, it's not good enough. And that first foaming, then the rinse, then the foam, or if you're using a rinseless, apply the rinseless, let it sit, hose it off, rinse, apply rinseless again, then do your contact wash. Now all your contact wash has to deal with is the traffic film. And it's going to remove it beautifully without being harsh, without damaging anything. And it's just a beautiful wash experience with a lot more safety involved and less worry about, am I scratching my paint?
It's so simple, yet once you get the concept, it's a game changer. Ivan, one thing we want to stick with in the lubrication conversation, using a brush is so important because you see those tiny little brushes on the detailing videos. They look fun. It's like, oh, surely you need a makeup brush to clean an emblem. How else would you clean it, right? I get why people use them, but often they use them too soon or with not enough lubrication. So let's talk about how to really make sure that the brush you're using on tiny little emblems or around seals, they do have utility depending on the brush, Ivan, but they can also be dangerous. So
Yeah.
what advice do you have for those brushes on exterior detailing?
Those little brushes are really fun and they do a great job. But like you mentioned, people use them a little too early in the process. And that too early in the process means, like I mentioned, they foam the car and then they get out the brush. You're moving grit around. And moving grit around is never a good thing, whether it be with a brush, a wash media, a sponge, doesn't matter. You don't want to be moving grit around. So foam, let it dwell, rinse again, foam again, then take your little brush and go around the emblems. Now, personally, I like to wash the surface first. So I'll do my wash with the Legacy sponge or my wash mitt if I'm using foam. Then I'll dunk my sponge or my wash mitt in the bucket, get it nice and wet, and then just slowly drip the water above the emblem. And as I'm brushing, it's rinsing away that grit. And if I'm doing around the door handles or around the mirrors, things like that, again, I'm using that extra lubrication and that flowing water or that flowing sudsy soap to bring that away from the brush as I'm using the brush. So, people harp on car washes, that they damage paint and all that. A good car wash actually doesn't really scratch the paint that much. And the reason I say a good car wash is some of them, the brushes are just twirling and they rarely rinse the brush off. It's not going slow enough and their rinsing isn't strong enough to get all the grit off the brush before it comes back around to your car. But a well-maintained car wash, when that brush has made it back to your car, so it's gone around and it's coming back, as it's coming back, it's been rinsed off so much that there's nothing left on it other than the soap. That's a good brush car wash. There are a few out there. You'll find them if you look for them. But, car wash operators, they try to save a bit of money by speeding up the brush, speeding up the conveyor belt, or reducing the amount of rinsing nozzles they have because they pay for the water. So, the more they're rinsing it off, the less good it is for us, or less profit they make, better it is for us. But they're trying to reduce that as much as possible. But you'll see some car washes where they have like 3 sets of nozzles around that brush. So by the time that brush is coming back around, it's clean. And that's what we're trying to do here, is get that added lubrication, that flow, to rinse that grit away. Because even though you've done the contact wash, you've pressure washed, there still could be grit. And that's the reason you're using the brush, is to get into those little cracks and crevices that the other methods can't get into. So you want to flow away that grit as you're doing it.
My latest car wash approach for $5 is I put 5 $1 bills into the drive-through. I brought my bucket of rinseless. I even used their crappy pre-foam, alkaline, whatever soap they had. But I want to do the foam and the rinse. And then I just had, I got rinseless on the surface. I had a rinseless wash. It was great. $5. I was able to leverage the pressure washer to really get a good rinse on there. And that's the beauty of having a ceramic coated car. So I have C6 Hydrolite. It's super easy to clean. And I didn't need brushes on that one. But
No.
I don't know why I had to bring that up, except for that I wanted to. So there you go, Ivan. Talking about exterior detailing, there's one interior detailing tip. We started with one that you can use panel prep for glass, and we're going to end with one. And Ivan, this is kind of your little baby. This is your trick on carpeted surfaces that may or may not have dog hair. You've come up with this one.
Well, it's not that I've come up with it. It's just something I've used for a long time. And it's basically, you want something to break the static between the dog hair and the carpet. And we have two products that work exceptionally well for breaking that static because they are naturally anti-static, and that is Interior Clean and Protect or Rinseless Wash. So a light mist of Interior Clean and Protect or a light mist of Rinseless Wash, you don't want to get the surface wet. You're just a light mist. It's enough to break that static because they're anti-static, that now the dog hair vacuums up a lot easier. It's not a miracle. It's not going to make the dog hair jump into the vacuum by itself, trust me, but it is going to make your job a lot easier and your finished results a lot faster. So very simple trick that a lot of people don't know.
And what do you have to lose? You may doubt the science of it. You may doubt the chemistry of it. Does it work? Does it not? Either way, that dog hair is going to be work. Give it a try.
Yeah.
Give it a try because certain dog hair jobs can take you hours. And Ivan, you've said this before. Talk to the customer. Is the dog going to get back into this dang car? Because if it is, we need to manage our expectations.
Right. And, ask the customer, okay, is the dog's coming back in? Do you mind if there's the odd little hair that stays? And most of the time they'll say, no, that's fine. I just want the majority of it off. I want the little hairball sitting in the corners gone. But, one or two little hairs stuck in the carpet is not something that is going to bother me. And I've seen detailers out there, and I think, Nick, you're one of them, to use tweezers to get every little last dog hair out of the carpet. And
or like a shaving razor, like electric razor, scissors.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes it just gets brutal. You resort to some literally some damaging techniques because you don't know what else to do. So that's where communicating with the customer is like, do you want me to do this? Like, how much do you care about this? Like, if I use this pumice stone, it could damage the carpet. Although you don't need to have that conversation. I mean, that's slight damage. But I don't know. You want to know what they're actually looking for with the dog hair before you spend an extra 3 hours that you're not getting paid for. That's what I think.
Yeah, and to sign off, one thing that a lot of people don't realize: detailing should be fun. It should be enjoyable. If you see detailing as a chore, reevaluate. There are ways of making it fun. There are ways of making it really enjoyable and a hobby that you can enjoy and really like. I'm used the word too much, but it should be fun. If you're looking forward to detailing, it's Saturday morning and you're getting up early because I'm going to detail my car. That's exactly what we're going for here.
Absolutely. And we actually did a recent podcast where we talked about our most fun detailing experience. Ivan, for you, it was a barn find of sorts.
Yes.
And that video is right here.